Hello, everybody. It is April 1st, April Fool's Day, 2024, and what that means is another month, and in this case, a full quarter has come and gone in 2024. So I'm going to use this video to review some of my sales, specifically on eBay for the sports trading card, baseball card realm for March 2024. As a disclaimer, I am not going to be sharing the eBay Seller Hub standard report, standard dashboard that you may be familiar with or you may at least be aware of that exist on your eBay Seller Hub. These are all custom accounting scripts that I've written with the Python programming language to really take a more detailed look at my inventory, at my sales, at what is selling, and really with the aim of being a little bit more specialized, a little bit more narrow on the baseball card realm, on the sports card trading realm, than the standard dashboard stuff you may see on eBay. I also use that stuff, but this video will be more of the fun stuff in my opinion. So let's jump right to it. These charts you're seeing here are strictly for the month of March. On the left is your team's sales chart. On the right is your players' sales chart. I have set the minimum threshold for players to 2 just so I don't overwhelm you and spam you with a graph that's totally impossible to read on this screen here, but hopefully it's showing up in high enough resolution that you can read some of the fun names that we're seeing on the chart. Starting with teams, it is so funny to me how no matter what I do, and I live out here in Colorado, but it's just a rule of thumb that popular teams sell better than less popular teams. And I don't think there's too many surprises. And of course, this is just 1 month of data. Later in the video, I'll show you the results for my eBay store for the full first quarter. But hey, look at there, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the team with a lot of money and a lot of star power. They are selling better than any other team. And that, switching to the right chart, is really led by a bulk lot of Clayton Kershaw cards, really low-end base cards that I bought with the intention of breaking those lots and selling as individual cards. And then in 3 months from now, I'm going to recompile those into lots for what didn't sell as singles and try to shed really large amounts of Clayton Kershaw cards. So sales have been good on our favorite left-handed pitcher from Texas, who is a no doubt first ballot Hall of Famer and hopefully coming back healthy here in a few months. The Cardinals, the Giants, also popular teams. The Pirates might be a surprising one towards the top of that list. We'll go through my actual card sales and maybe keep an eye out for which Pirates we're selling, but that is not maybe a more common team that I sell out here in Colorado, but good to see some buyers out there. Some of the fun ones, and these are really teams that I've had to take special attention to get into my database, but some of these Japanese teams, I love the 2021 Topps Chrome NPB set with the Japanese players, and I've been breaking up a few different lots that I've bought from them. So you'll see some of those teams that maybe in the future I won't have as many sales for them, but those have been fun to sell as well. Other observations that I may make, and mind you, I'm not the highest volume seller in the world, but pretty fun to see Clayton Kershaw and Buster Posey at the top, and that's because I'm trying this new strategy of breaking player lots into individual transactions. So good to see them with some good sales at the beginning. Robin Yount is another interesting one where I had one buyer really take a good look at all my Yount cards and purchase a number of those in a couple of different transactions. So I always love grouping orders. I love selling more than just one card at a time if I can swing it, and real cool to see that. Same thing, later in the list, sold a couple of cards of Tim LeCastro. He's a guy that really proves that there's a collector of everything. And so I really enjoy listing singles, even of players who are not as popular as Kershaw, Posey, Yount, Darvish because one buyer decided to buy 2 different Tim LeCastro parallels that I had available in my store. Now, you may see the 2 name entries on this list, such as Clayton Kershaw and Nolan Ryan in one shot, Miguel Cabrera, Ivan Rodriguez, and that is no accident. Those are actually cards that feature both players, and the way I have my Python script analyze my transactions is that it actually pulls out all player names associated with that card after it's been sold. So that's why you'll see Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, because they were grouped on a card, and I sold a couple of those this past month. Maybe the most surprising one before we move on is Jack Wilson, and he contributes to the Pirates transactions as well. But not every day that you sell 2 Jack Wilson, specifically Topps Gold parallels, in the same month to different buyers. So not sure if he's been in the news for whatever reason, but I was surprised to shed those from my inventory and get those to collectors who will appreciate the Jack Wilson cards probably a little bit more than me. So these next ones get a little bit nerdy, and the premise of this type of visualization is I want to understand when I'm buying specific lots of cards how I'm performing, and that can be measured maybe in 2 ways which are presented here. The first, the most natural thing to think about is, of course, profit. How much am I making relative to what I spent on that initial investment? And then the second key area of interest is inventory. How much inventory do I have left? Let's say I buy 100 cards and I sell 10 of them and I make all my money back. Well, that's great, and the even greater news is that I still have 90 cards to make additional money on. And it's really powerful to think in this way because you can be patient. You don't have to just sell, or you can also choose when to buy to know when you want to restock your inventory based on how your sales are going. So these next few charts are depicting that inventory, which is in orange, and that profit percentage, which is in blue, for different projects that I'm accounting for. I'll have more videos coming out soon about how I do accounting because I do think this is pretty unique. I don't think many people do this, at least in a way that's automated. Some people may do this on a short-term basis, but I really can do this for anything I sell on eBay based on that initial purchase that I made. And so everything you're seeing here is related to my purchases of a project that I call Gold, and that just stands for Topps Gold Parallels. I have thousands of these. So if you like Topps Gold Parallels, this is a shameless plug to check out my eBay store because I have most of them listed and hundreds more coming here even in the next few days. But every time I buy and sell Topps Gold cards, that feeds back into this type of analysis. And you can see just tracking this chart, I'm showing January 1st through March 31st. I know this is a monthly sales review, but this chart really doesn't mean much just looking at the course of 1 month because you want to have a longer term mindset when you're breaking lots, when you're doing specific projects. But I think the key takeaway here is I have had some really good sales up front of these top gold cards. And once I realized that I was sitting on some, what I like to call house money, in other words, I've already paid off all my cards, but I still have inventory remaining, I'm going to go ahead and do another purchase. I'm going to keep buying more. And I have a price point for these cards that I really will pretty much buy them in every situation if it's at that price point per Topps Gold card. And so you can see a few big purchases. In February, I purchased 800 of these bad boys, and that sets you back just for a little bit. But you can see when I'm not making the purchases, the sales are pretty stable. I'm making sales. People are really interested in these cards. They're all serial numbered. They're novel. They're harder to find than a regular base card. And predictably, when I'm buying these cards, when the profit goes down, my inventory is typically going up because that means that I'm buying more. And so I'm really happy where this one is because you can see a lot of different investments and a pretty stable growth when I'm not making those investments of the profit. And I'm right about even, and I still have about 60% of my inventory remaining. So to think of it that way, I basically bought 60% of my original cards for free. And so from here on out, if I didn't make any more purchases, this profit would go up. Eventually it would peak out or asymptote, but we can call it successful at the end of the day. Similarly, I have a dealer who's conveniently named Mike, and I'll buy a lot of the stuff, low dollar stuff, think dollar box, autograph, relic cards, and I will resell those on eBay. And it's a win-win because this is inventory that he's going to have a really tough time moving without an online presence, as he mainly makes in-person transactions and larger deals like that. So I can track my profit, my inventory related to everything I buy from this dealer. And so this, you can see a little bit more fleshed out than the gold project where I've put a lot more money in. But I'm sitting here in the money. I've already made over 50% profit at the end of the day, and I still have 40% of my inventory remaining. So anything I sell at any price where I make money getting it in the hands of a buyer, so after shipping, after fees, that is money going back to my bottom line. So pretty exciting stuff here. And you can see, thinking about the month of March, big investment here early on, and that immediately returned. And I found stable buyers for this type of inventory throughout the month of March. This is an interesting example because this is a project miscellaneous, really just buying anything that I see that's interesting or at a really good price. And I haven't hardly invested in this type of project at all in 2024 outside of one or maybe two purchases in February. And so you can see my profit is going up. It's flattening out a little bit because I have less novel inventory. I have stuff that fewer people are interested in, as typically the cooler stuff sells first, either through an offer or buy it now or an auction. But the key fact here is my inventory is a real slow slope. It's going down, but my profit is already in the blue. For the sake of this chart, it's in the black, it's in the green, however you want to say it. But I've made money, and so all this inventory that I'm sitting on will just add to this profit over time. These next few charts are the most interesting because these are projects that I started in the month of March. And so you can see this one, I call it Player Lot. I changed my convention after doing this one, but actually this is focused on Buster Posey cards. I really like the aspect of Buster Posey cards because he had a relatively short career, and it largely was outside of the COVID pandemic production boost due to the increased popularity in baseball cards. He was a rookie in 2010, and so much of his inventory potential that I might buy is in that 2010 to 2019 or so range. And so I bought a lot of him at the 13th of March. And you can see I have hardly sold a fraction of what I have of them. I still have 90% of my inventory left, and I've only lost overall about 10% of my profit. And so that's great. I've almost paid off every Buster Posey card I have, and I still have 90% of that inventory to sell. After 3 months, or when this inventory becomes stale, I'm going to repackage that into a lot and sell it. I'll make less profit individually per card, but it will secure my overall profit for the project. And I will deplete my inventory, and I won't have to worry about picking out individual cards or anything like that. The next player I've picked up has been Mookie Betts, who of course is on the star-packed Dodgers team. Super popular player. He's had a great career across a couple different markets, namely Boston and Los Angeles. And so you can see even less progress here because I just started this on March 20th. But the big takeaway is you want your profit slope to be at a bigger slope than your inventory. And so this means that I'm making more money per card than I am losing inventory. So I've only sold a few of his, but I've already recouped maybe 5 to 8% of that original investment. Another Dodgers guy, Clayton Kershaw. This is really similar, and I'll flip back just carefully because this is probably what Mookie's chart will look like after a few more sales. And Kershaw is progressing nicely. I've already recouped about 20% of that original investment, and I have hardly sold any of his cards. The reason for that is that when you buy in bulk, you can typically get a pretty good rate per card. And these are cards that, yes, it's going to take some hustle. Yes, it's going to take some work to list individually. But when you sell individually, you really will maximize your profit potential. In each sale, you're going to get quite a big percent profit for that individual card. And then the big question is, okay, well, if I buy 300 Clayton Kershaw cards in a lot at some price rate, how many of those can I sell as singles at a significantly higher price rate? That's really the big question. And these base cards are tougher to move because there's so much inventory, and maybe most collectors already have these at this point. So it's a lot of hustle, but a lot of the data infrastructure that I've been building up will allow me to convert all of this inventory into a listing for a lot, for another bulk lot, for whatever I have left, at very little expense or time to me. I can take that data that I generated listing all these as singles and then recompile into a lot and get on my merry way with fewer calories and fewer minutes spent on that non-recurring task. I think this is the last player, and yeah, this guy played for the Dodgers just for a quick minute there. Albert Pujols, one of my personal favorite players, absolute legend. Had a few rough years in Los Angeles on the Angels side of town, but legendary career, hit 700 home runs. So really a ripe candidate for buying bulk lots because you know there are so many Pujols fans out there. So this will be really fun when I continue to do these sales reviews in the future to see how these slopes change, see how these sales go, and to see if this is a repeatable method for breaking lots into singles, maximizing on the profit there, and then recompiling into lots to shed off that inventory and firmly, securely profit for the entire project. Won't spend as much time on this one, but this is the quarter one results. This is January 1 through March 31, and pretty interesting to see here. Of course, there's always going to be a correlation between team and player for legends like David Ortiz, who made a name out of himself, mainly in Boston, but I did sell a couple, at least one Twins card of him, surprisingly. Kershaw with the Dodgers, Pujols with Cardinals, and a couple with the Angels, but nothing too crazy here. I guess this may answer the question on why were the Pirates so high on my March list, but I see these names of Jack Sawinski, and maybe he's the only one, but really, really good young Pirates hitter. And so I always like to make observations here, but grouped here on the left, kind of just fun and coincidental to see the Miami Marlins and the Florida Marlins together. The Guardians are on here. I would imagine the Cleveland Indians would be on another month, as I've sold a lot of their stuff in the past, but not as much this year. So it's sometimes fun to see those different teams after they go through branding changes or name changes. And the big markets do tend to rise to the top. And then on the right here, you got quite a few older veteran names. These are folks with established collector bases with more than enough demand from collectors to buy their stuff. But you also have some really young names like Sawinski, as mentioned, Stephen Kwan, another one, Melendez, George Kirby, one of my favorite pitchers for the Mariners, Hunter Green. So it's really interesting that you see folks who are retired or firmly established as legends, or you have folks on the younger side of things, and not as much in between. You don't see the high volume. You will see one-off sales, but not as many journeymen, not as many folks kind of in the end or twilight of their career, but not legends, which I think is just so intuitive, but really curious to see here in the data. So digging into the finances a little bit more, next couple of charts are getting into some of my business expenses and how that changes relative to the number of orders that I have completed. And so this here is the cost of my eBay store subscription per order. So I've had just over 500, maybe 550, 560 orders so far in 2024. And this chart is for all of those. So this is not just the month of March. This is the first quarter. But you can see my store subscription cost is clocking in about 10 cents per order, per transaction. I have the basic store subscription, so that's the second level, and I get plenty of listings. I never even come close to the listings limit, but the important takeaway here is that the more transactions that you have, the less burdensome that subscription cost is. So you really do have an incentive to maximize however many listings you have in a given month, and by that, the number of transactions, because you would expect to have more transactions based on how many listings you have to minimize that cost. So I'm around 10 cents or so per transaction, and if I ramped that up, if I got more orders, that number would be even lower. So I think this really helps people, especially beginning thinking out, hey, do I want an eBay store subscription or do I not? You need to think about your volume. You need to think about how many orders that you're going to do. Of course, this is a fixed cost. You're paying maybe $21, $22 a month, regardless of how many sales that you complete, regardless of how many things you ship out. But you can think of it cleverly in a burdened way and say, okay, well, maybe I ship 1,000 items, and then over the course of this year, it's really like I'm paying 5 cents or a nickel for my eBay store subscription, which comes with additional discounts on shipping supplies, on fees. You maybe get more eyeballs on your store because you're higher promoted on the search algorithm. So it's really up to you. I'm not telling you which store to get in this video, but this is a powerful graphic for understanding your business and how much it costs you on average per order for your store subscription. This one is really fun because of the big dip here. Supplies is one of those things that you have to pay for some things. If you are in the baseball card business, you're shipping things out. You need envelopes, you need mailers, you need boxes, you need tape, you need cases. All of that is supplies, and a lot of that can be factored as a product of or a function of how many sales you're doing, how many shipments you're doing. You could reasonably estimate what your supplies cost is per order just on those. But what if you want to invest in some higher dollar equipment like a scanner, like a thermal shipping label printer? Any of that stuff you really can't prescribe or put on one single transaction. It doesn't make much sense because you're hopefully using this for quite some time. And so my big advancement in March from a business operations standpoint is I did finally buy a scanner. Previously, I was taking pictures with my phone, which is a little cumbersome. It does take a little time. It still takes good photos. Time is the biggest factor. But if you have a phone, if you have a camera, you can do that with no added expense. So I pushed off my purchase of the scanner until this past month. And here we go. That really set back my average cost of supplies per order. But you can imagine if I use the scanner for a few years, a few more months, this curve is going to return to some stable asymptote where I can reasonably expect a range for my average cost of supplies per order. So before this big purchase, I was under 20 cents per order, which is pretty darn good in my opinion. because I have invested in bulk supplies, card savers, card sleeves, envelopes, and I'm finally seeing the returns or the dividends on those purchases because I really don't have as many supplies purchases as time goes on once you have those bulk supplies made in advance. But you'll see here that after buying the scanner, and I even bought 10,000 card sleeves, which will last me quite some time, it's going to take a bit to return to that better number per order. So, hope that helped lay a framework for maybe some ways to analyze or account for your sales in a given month or a given quarter. If you're interested in any of this, drop a comment, shoot me an email, because I am hopeful to make some of these learnings more accessible, more available to other folks who are maybe nerdy like me and want to get a better grip on some of their sports card sales. We'll jump here now to which cards actually sold in the month of March. And this is mainly just a fun game of naming players' teams and random observations that happen. So I'll share a few stories on the way, but this will largely just be scrolling for our own enjoyment. I do love Topps Gold 2002. These are actually pretty tough to find, so was pleased to sell a David Ortiz at my listed price of $11.99, and I had originally bought that in a lot for maybe $2 or so. You'll see that I do accept offers frequently. That's one thing I like to do. I think it's good for buyer engagement. Another area that I'll dip my toes into is concert posters. And the reason for this is I love going to concerts. I'm a big Dave Matthews Band fan. There's a huge concert market or concert poster market. And so usually my strategy is, hey, I'll go to a show. I'll buy just 2 of these posters, one for myself that I'll hang on my wall, and then one that I'll get to some collector or some fan who wasn't able to make the show. And usually they'll pay pretty good price compared to how they're available inside, but providing that service of securing and shipping and getting that poster out is definitely worth something, especially for folks who may not make the show. I love this sale. Casey Coleman, guy I've never heard of. I don't know why people buy Casey Coleman cards, but that is one of the joys of card collecting, is there is something for everyone. So this may be some guy's pitching coach, maybe from the same hometown as the buyer. I don't really know. Heck, he may have bought it himself. I don't think he did in this case. I have sold to a couple of players that come to mind in the past, but you just never know who's out there collecting, so it's worth listing for sale. I don't sell as many relic cards, but cool to see Tom Glavine make a sale at the full listed price. You can see a lot of other lower name players, Andrew Haney, Mike Matheny, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Adam LaRoche. So cool to see these sell as well, because you just wouldn't expect 2024. Maybe you may not be interested, but other people are, very obviously. These two, these Patrick Corbin, George Sisler, are interesting because I listed these and I wasn't using at the time my automated pricing method. These I was just using just gut instinct. And so I listed this one, Corbin. He's had an up and down career, pretty good player. He's an all-star, maybe twice, at least once. Listed this at $3.99. It sold within an hour. George Sisler, same thing. It's serial number to 25, but it's Panini card, so it's not licensed. Never know if that's going to get too much interest, but this sold right away. So I probably could have toggled the price up there to begin. Here we're getting into the example of why it's good to have inventory of maybe even the same card on your store. But I sold both of these to the same buyer, and it's the same card, just different parallels. So a lot of people will try to chase what they call rainbows or different versions of the parallels, and it's good to have as much inventory as possible just in case you get that repeat buyer or that multi-item order. Starting here with this Nicky Lopez, the next few sold almost immediately after listing them. And again, I think after mentioning the automated pricing tool that it's really, really important to get your pricing right. All of these sold within 24 hours, maybe even less of having these listed. And so that might be one indication that you price them either perfectly fairly, which is great because as a seller, I love getting rid of inventory right away, but it may have been a little bit underpriced. Oh, this is a cool one. I love seeing two Hall of Famers on the same card, both from their playing days on the same team. So that's good. You can see, here's one example. This Ricky Weeks. I had seen a couple of comparable sales, but really didn't know what it was worth. It's a USA card. It's serial numbered. I listed it at $10 after buying it for 90 cents just to feel the market. And within a day, I think I got an offer for $5, maybe $6 on that. And it's a win for me. I profited on it, and I was able to sell it right away. I don't know how much it was actually worth, but sometimes a good strategy is just to list higher than you think it's worth and then accept even an offer that may be at 50% of your list price. This is a card I bought mainly because of the rarity. Dane, I think he was even on the World Series champion team for the Rangers last year, but bought this at a card show in December. Very inexpensive. I probably lost maybe $1 on that, but I had already done so well on the other cards from the card show that I didn't mind getting this to someone who's interested in it, interested in the card. I'd been sitting on it for 4 months, so I might as well shed it off and take a small loss. So I accepted an offer there. Yeah, some other great names. Love seeing Giovanni Gallardo right next to Chipper Jones and Jack Sawinski on the same sales list. Brian Acuna. Here's where we're getting into some Yount cards. Those will come later from the multi-order. Livan Soto. I had a bunch of these short prints that sold, some at full value, some that I accepted a light discount on. Here is one of the Japanese cards. Really tough to evaluate if you're not familiar with that market, with those stats, with those players. So one selling strategy just at minimal time spent to you is just, hey, I'm going to list them all at some moderate price and see what offers that I get. This Microbello lot just makes me smile. It's 2024 and someone's out there buying 9 cards of Microbello. This was actually a great dialogue that I had with a buyer who reached out and said, hey, I see you have 9 Microbello gold cards available. I'd like to buy all of them. What can we do? And so I actually made a custom listing. I gave him a really good price compared to how they were originally listed, and we're all happy. The buyer gets the cards that he wants, and I can sell them in a lot because otherwise it's probably going to take me quite some time to get through this Mike Rebello inventory. But happy buyer, happy seller, all the makings of a great deal. Here's another one I took a loss on. I think I sent out an offer and then the buyer made a counter offer on. This was also from that card show in December, but because I had done so well on everything else, and slabs take up a lot of space, and I already have a number of Bert Blyleven cards in my personal collection, I decided to let this go at a pretty good price, probably below what it may have been worth by a few bucks, but worth it overall for my business goals. I love that you can sell cards for $1.59. You still make a few cents as a seller, but these were all cards I got for virtually pennies, like single cents, single digits. And so the fact that I can sell those to folks and get them to collections where they'll be appreciated, and I make a little bit of money, and I have some automation tools to make my listing accurate and fast, that's the type of stuff that gets me excited about the baseball card industry. There's a fun Yu Darvish card from his days in Japan, another one here in 2008. Now we're getting into some shifts in business practices. So you can see to date, all of these cards had been me taking a picture with a blue background, and the pictures are a little bit dull, and that's okay because they're fine pictures. They're not perfect. But this was the point where I bought my scanner, and I was really trying to get the hang of it. So I started it with this Buster Posey lot. I've learned about the scanner, about how to do it with cards safely. But starting here, that's where you'll see my incumbent method of this blue background with mixing with the scanned cards. And you can just see how much better these photos are. I mean, it just looks a lot more professional. I'm hoping the buyers get a better chance to inspect condition, to appreciate the actual card they'll be receiving, and the frequency of that will tick up as I started listing more and more cards with the scanner. I will say, chrome type cards, Donruss Optic, Topps Chrome, that is a tough case to crack sometimes in terms of lighting, especially if you're doing it with cards that have maybe different reflection levels, different settings that might apply. So I don't think this is a particular good image, but this is looking back at that Clayton Kershaw, Nolan Ryan dual card that I sold a couple copies of this past month. So that is kind of the flavor of the different sales. $1.49. This is a card in kind of rough condition that I've had since I was a kid. So someone was interested in that, so that's great. But now as we're inching towards April, I think that makes for a fitting conclusion to the video. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, we reviewed how to walk through some accounting techniques. Maybe in the process, I reviewed my sales for the month of March. Hope you learned something. If this type of content is interesting to you, please like the channel. Please subscribe, because I'll be having a lot more videos coming out talking about my business practices and hopefully offering some tips and tricks to help you as a seller as well. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next video.